Good afternoon, everyone. It is Monday, July 7th at 1:45 p.m. I will call this meeting of the Elkhart Plan Commission to order. As a reminder to everyone, please turn off or mute your cell phones. Could I get a motion and a second? Or actually, nope. Carla, could you please do a roll call?
Davis, Osborne,
Here.
Beecher,
Here.
Newbill, Lawson,
Here.
Mishler,
Present.
Irwin.
Here. We have a quorum. Could I get a motion and a second to amend today's agenda to add in as a new item 1B, election of a temporary secretary for today's meeting?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Osborne, second by Mr. Mishler. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Could I get a motion and a second to approve the amended agenda for today's meeting?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Mr. Mishler, second by Ms. Lawson. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Could I get a motion and second to approve the minutes of the June 2nd, 2025 meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Betcher, second by Mr. Beecher, second by Mr. Mishler. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Could I motion in a second to approve the proofs of publications for today's meeting?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Lawson, second by Mr. Osborne. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we have an agenda and all that stuff's out of the way. 20 new business, 25 FSP 07.
Do we have to do election?
Oh, yeah, we probably should elect the secretary. Could I get a nomination for a election of a secretary?
It's just for this meeting.
Yeah, I'll nominate Dan Beecher for secretary of this meeting.
Second that.
I have a motion by Ms. Lawson, a second by Mr. Osborne to nominate Mr. Beecher. Any other nominations? Seeing none, I will close the nominations. And Carla, could you please do a roll call?
Osborne,
Yes.
Beecher, Lawson,
Yes.
Mishler,
Aye.
Irwin.
Yes, congratulations.
Congratulations.
I appreciate
It's
it.
the best thing you can do.
All right, new business, 25 SSP 07.
JFCF Invest 3 LLC. The site location is 3009 Brittany Court. The request is as required by Section 20.7B, seeking approval for final site plan for a new 6,686 square foot commercial restaurant building with associated parking at 3009 Brittany Court. Petitioner seeks relief from drive aisle width, interior landscape area and design, and permit one elevation with foundation with foundation plantings. The analysis as required, again, by 20.7B, seeking approval for final site plan for a new 6,686 square foot commercial restaurant building with associated parking at 3009 Brittany Court. Petitioner seek relief from drive aisle width, interior landscape area and design, and permit one elevation with foundation plantings. The petitioner's agent submitted civil plans for review and approval by the city's technical review committee. Comments were provided to the agent, and most comments were provided by staff have been addressed. Staff has reviewed the request for relief from the drive aisle width, interior landscape area and design, and permit one elevation with, foundation plantings. All of the above requests are not significant, and staff support the petitioner's request for relief. The petitioner has added additional plantings on other parts of the parcel to make up for the elimination in other areas. The orientation of the parking lot to accommodate the restaurant necessitates some measure of relief, as Brittany has 4 other restaurants that on occasion spill out onto the street. The agent for the petitioner has been creative in accommodating the necessary parking for the use. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the final site plan based on the following findings of fact. Number 1, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. Number 2, the proposed use is permitted within the underlying zoning of the planned unit development. Number 3, the project has passed city's technical review process. And number 4, the use conforms to the comprehensive plan, which calls for, that should be commercial uses and not industrial uses. And number 5, the proposed use should not be detrimental to the property values of adjacent properties. There were 30 letters mailed, 0 returned.
Questions for Mr. Trotter? Not seeing any. Eric, have we thought about cross-access easements? Oh, that this is an existing restaurant and it's already through technical review, but
Well, part of what makes this particular site unique is that Brittany Court is a private street. So there already is some unique access issues on that street because they essentially all overflow and share the street when the restaurants are at their peak times. I think if, in my honest opinion, if this were new development, breaking ground fresh from Windsor, that would be a great idea. And actually, that's something we are adding into the UDO, which we'll talk about at the end of the agenda. But I think that I hear your concern and your idea, but I think for this particular situation, it would not really benefit it, and very likely it would cause the elimination of parking on both their site and the next site to accommodate that easement.
is the petitioner here and would they like to please step up and state your name and address for the record, please?
Marissa Coleman, 8600 West Bryn Mawr Avenue, Chicago, Illinois.
Thanks. Just a quick question. What's the name of the restaurant?
It's Bubba's 33. They're a chain that's owned and operated by Texas Roadhouse. So not surprising, they're right next to each other. They're doing a lot. They're expanding the Bubba's 33 concept. It's more of a casual wings, burger, pizza type of style. And they're mimicking Texas Roadhouse locations that are more successful in successful markets.
Sounds good. Glad to hear we're a successful market.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Not seeing any. Thank you for coming.
Okay, thank you.
Bring it back to the Plan Commission. Well, actually, we're going to go ahead and open it up for public hearing right now. If there is anyone online or in the audience that wishes to speak on this matter, now is the time. If you are online, please make sure that you turn on your camera and digitally raise your hand so we know to unmute you. Not seeing anyone, I will go ahead and close the public hearing, bring it back to the Plan Commission. Is there anyone else with any other questions? Not seeing any. Could I get a motion in a second with regard to the approval of this final site plan? Thank you. Just us. Yep. Just the Plan Commission.
Approve 25 SSP-07.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Osborne, second by Mr. Mishler. Carla, could you please do a roll call?
Lawson? Lawson?
Yes.
Beecher?
Yes.
Osborne? Mishler?
Aye.
Irwin?
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, next item, 25 PUD-01.
The petitioner's Racetrack Incorporated. The site location is the southwest corner of County Road 17 and Middlebury Street. The request is per section 20.4C, approval of a standard planned unit development to be developed to the B3 Service Business District standards for the purpose of developing a convenience store with fuel services. The proposed parcel is approximately 3.38 acres in area to also allow for 2 freestanding signs, one on the County Road 17 frontage at 90 square feet at 10 feet in height, and the Middlebury frontage 66 square feet in height, 66 square feet in area, and 6 feet in height. excuse me, analysis per section, again, 20.4C, approval of a standard planned unit development to be developed to the B3 service business district standards for the purpose of developing a convenience store with fuel services. The proposed parcel is approximately 3.38 acres in area to also allow for 2 freestanding signs, one on the County Road 17 frontage at 90 square feet in area and 10 feet in height, and the Middlebury Street frontage at 66 square feet at 6 feet in height. The 3.38 acre project is located at the southwest corner of County Road 17 and Middlebury Street, the location of the former Bullard Farm. The proposed project is part of an overall development that will incorporate all of the land west of County Road 17 from Middlebury Street to just north of Verdant Street. The vision is that the land fronting County Road 17 will be for commercial uses and the industrial distribution uses on the remaining interior property. There is a proposed connector road that will connect the proposed development to the Stubb Street north at Verdant and the curb cut on County Road 17. This road will be constructed by the developer. The petitioner has not yet submitted the project for technical review, but has submitted elevations of the building, a preliminary drainage plan, a landscape plan, and signage plan. Staff have reviewed the plans submitted, and with the exception of the freestanding signs, all appear to comply with the required standard for the district and corridor. As there will be no development sign for the Bullard Farm development, the petitioner is asking for an increase in the sign area and height along County Road 17. In reviewing the signage request, staff looked at the existing signage in that portion of County Road 17 corridor, as well as the type and scale of the use each of the uses the sign was advertising. What was found was in that portion of County Road 17, the larger existing signage was part of an overall sign plan that featured a large development sign with smaller individual signs for each tenant or tenant group, all approved by Elkhart County as a part of a planned unit development. As this project will have no overall development sign, staff felt some increase was appropriate given the size of the lot and the road right-of-way and classification. The freestanding signs are proposed to be as follows. The County Road 17 frontage sign is proposed to be 90 square feet, including changeable copy area, and 10 feet in height, where 50 square feet is permitted at a height of 6 feet. The Middlebury Street frontage is proposed to be 66 feet in area and 6 feet in height, where 50 square feet is permitted. The proposed convenience store will provide various food offerings that include sandwiches, pizza, and chicken, along with the coffee and frozen yogurt station. This location will also have a fuel service with a canopy on the east side of the building. Access will be from a right-in, right-out cut on Middlebury Street, along with an overall development cut on Middlebury Street. The other access will come from a development curb cut on County Road 17 by way of a common service drive. This planned unit development is developed to the B3 development standards with the exception of the monument signage. Staff recommends approval of the standard planned unit development to the B3 standards based on the following findings of fact. Number one, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community because the proposed use of convenience store meets with the proposed planned unit development B3 standards and will be compatible with the surrounding commercial uses in that part of County Road 17 corridor. Number two, the proposed site plan meets the development standards for the underlying zoning of the planned unit development, the B3 Service Business District. Number three, the proposed site plan for the planned unit development will utilize access points as described on the site plan. Number four, the project will be required to be submitted for full review and approval by City's Technical Review Committee. Number five, the comprehensive plan future land use map has not been adopted for this area, but the proposed planned unit development is anticipated to conform and call for commercial land uses. And number six, the proposed use should not be detrimental to the property values of adjacent properties. There were 15 letters mailed, none returned.
Hi. Yeah, just a couple quick questions. So that turnoff onto 17 down here. Now, is that going to be just turn in, or will folks be able to turn southward and north on 17 from there? Because I worry about the impact on traffic there.
That curb cut was predetermined when that property was still under the Bullard family, and I believe that is a full access curb cut onto County Road 17.
Okay, so folks could potentially turn north on that into traffic.
Correct.
Okay. And the size of these signs, is that pretty comparable with other service stations in the area?
In that part of 17, we felt what they were requesting was reasonable in that section of 17 when you look at the other uses that we have now annexed in the city and farther on County Road 17.
Okay. And the other question I had real quick is I haven't done a lot of service stations like this in the past. Where will the storage tanks for fuel and things like that be located? How are we making sure that there's no environmental concerns, that sort of thing with it?
Those comments will be addressed twofold.
Okay.
Both at tech review and through the building department, and they'll have to also file with the state for their tanks when they are installed. And so the technology with fuel tanks is much different from fuel tanks in the past with the double wall technology to where if the first tank would leak, there's the second tank that would capture that. And so you wouldn't have the environmental issues.
My only concern with gas stations like this is that if they were to ever leave, if it was to ever close, removing those tanks is often a time-consuming, expensive process that sometimes falls on the city to do. So that's my only kind of hesitation when it comes to new service stations is I don't want this to come back and bite the city in 30 or 40 years and have us be on the hook for digging those tanks out. Nothing we can do about it, but.
Mr. Osborne?
Eric, do we have to rezone this property?
Yes, this is the actual rezoning today to the standard planned unit
Rezoning,
development.
then we're going to have to send this to the council?
Yes, this goes to the council.
And as far as those sign changes, don't they have to go to the BZA for?
No, since this is a planned unit development, we're writing these into that ordinance for this parcel. So that will become part of that parcel as part of their permitted sign package with this approval.
We will be sending this to the council, though.
Yes.
Other questions? Not seeing any. Is there anyone from the applicant here that wishes to speak?
Afternoon. My name is Mike Hoffman. I'm an attorney with Beers Mallers. I represent Racetrack. With me today from Racetrack is Zach Sen, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Eric gave a very thorough presentation. I appreciate that, so I'll try not to duplicate the information that he's just relayed to you. Racetrack is based in Georgia and is the third largest private company in Georgia and the 24th in the country. As Eric mentioned, Racetrack is more than a typical convenience store. They offer fresh sandwiches, pizza, chicken, frozen yogurt station, bean-to-cup coffee, along with all fueling needs. The application before you, as you heard, involves a planned unit development that implicates 3.38 acres approximately being carved out of the northeast corner of the parent parcel, which is approximately 36 acres. This is to create B3 standards for Racetrack to operate within. As Eric mentioned, there is signage that we have worked with the city, Eric and his team, to come to the sizing on that signage for what has been proposed as part of this package. As you know, County Road 17 is a major north-south corridor connecting Michigan to Elkhart and is a throughway to various employment clusters. It's a high-traffic vehicle corridor that is close to direct access off the bypass, and Racetrack fueling and convenience services and products are well tailored to meet the immediate needs of such County Road 17 and bypass travelers. Continuing forward, considering the commercial development along County Road 17, the proposed development appears to foster a rational pattern of relationship between residential, business, and industrial uses and would not appear to have any negative impact on existing neighborhoods. We believe in review of the comprehensive plan that this project is well-suited on the subject site to promote the themes of convenient and efficient travel while also meeting important needs of the community in an area that has already been projected to welcome more commercial development in the future. In working with the city, the desire for the overall parcel is to structure its development for manufacturing and industrial uses on the west, as Eric said, and commercial uses on the east side of the parcel. The proposed racetrack development, as you can see from the plans, is purposed to help achieve that goal. Further, the design of the racetrack site has intentionally considered internal roadways and access, as well as the existing cut, which has been, as Eric mentioned, prior approved, to allow for complementary development of the parent parcel. Sufficient utilities exist in this area to serve the site. In summary, we believe that the racetrack development, while being an exciting addition to Elkhart, accomplishes responsible development of the site, tailoring itself to enhance the community in conformance with the goals of the comprehensive plan. We appreciate your consideration of the request, and as I mentioned, we'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Questions?
Yeah, just again, just real quick on that access to 17 there. That's really my only major concern is the potential of vehicles turning left to go north on 17 into that rapid traffic, as well as the potential for, what is this, about 600 feet away from the intersection there of during a busy part of the day, if a vehicle decides to stop and turn in and somebody's turning out of you know, bottlenecking traffic there a little bit. That's, I don't know if any thought had been put into working with the city regarding that traffic impact.
Yeah, sure. So Racetrack has commissioned a traffic impact study, which they do for all of their developments. They wouldn't engage in the development of this site without having that showed that there would not be issues using that sort of cut. I mean, it's a concern of Racetrack too, because obviously if there's issues with its patrons getting in and out, it may diminish, you know, the patrons' desire to use the site for fuel and convenience store facilities. So it's a concern of Racetrack, and they have taken it into account. And it's a concern of the owner of the parent parcel as well, because as we said, that entire parcel is situated to be developed eventually, and using that cut there on 17 that was considered some years ago. So we're all working around that with what is in place in that location and what needs to happen. And Racetrack does believe that with its traffic impact study, the data it received, that cut would be sufficient for its purposes and also not create a detriment for County Road 17.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for the applicant?
And if I may, I could add one more statement for Mr. Mishler's question to Eric. As it relates to those fuel tanks that are on site, Racetrack would either decommission those tanks if it sold the property, or as a condition of sale of the property, it would require the purchaser to decommission the tanks and remove the tanks. Mm-hmm. Welcome.
I just have one comment, and I know this, we'll make sure we'll get this worked out during tech reviews, that again, with towards the traffic and this being a part of a much larger site that will eventually develop, we're going to make sure that there's cross access in between north, south, and east, west. Manage traffic internal to the site whenever that happens.
Completely understood.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you for coming. I'm going to go ahead
very
and
much.
open it up to public hearing. If there is anyone in the audience or online that wishes to speak on this, now would be the time. Not seeing anyone, I will go ahead and close public hearing, bring it back to the Plan Commission. Anybody have any further questions? Okay, could I get a motion in a second with a recommendation to the council for this rezone?
I'll make a motion to send this to the full city council with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Mishler, second by Ms. Lawson. Carla, could you please do a roll call?
Beecher,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes.
Mishler,
Aye.
Irwin.
Yes, motion carries. 25 FSP 08.
The petitioner is 5220 Middlebury Street, Elkhart LLC. Site location is 673 County Road 17. The request is as required by Section 20.7B, seeking final approval for a final site plan for a proposed one-story retail building with associated 20 parking spaces at 673 County Road 17, which is currently vacant. The analysis, the petitioner is requesting final site plan approval for a new retail building at the northwest corner of County Road 17 and Middlebury Street. The 3,500 square foot building will be the new location of a Sherwin-Williams paint store. The project has been approved through tech review and has addressed comments raised by staff during the review process. The site is accessed from Middlebury Street from a 60-foot wide private drive. The drive also serves the Amberwood Terrace Shopping Center. Access can also be made from the existing entrance for the shopping center from County Road 17. For this 1.18 acre lot, there is no access permitted to County Road 17, or I should say no direct access to County Road 17. There's also no access easement recorded on the plat that restricts access to the west access drive. This project is within the County Road 17 overlay district, meaning there are additional design elements required for the exterior facades of a building that fronts County Road 17 and facades that are visible from County Road 17. The requirements within our ordinance specify an offset of building wall and an additional roof element that were not incorporated into this design. Those elements are meant to break up long wall lengths and horizontal roof lines. Staff reviewed the building's design against the requirements and feel that because of the small size of the building at 3,500 square feet, adding additional wall offsets and roof elements, the look of the building would be less cohesive and be overwhelmed by the additions. Staff feels the intent of the design requirements have been met and encouraged the Plan Commission to support the staff in this evaluation. This building will be an enhancement to the County Road 17 corridor. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the final site plan based on the following findings of fact. Number one, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community. Number two, the proposed use is permitted within the underlying zoning of the planned unit development. Number three, the project has passed the city's technical review. Number four, the use conforms to the comprehensive plan, which calls for commercial uses. And number five, the proposed use should not be detrimental to the property values of adjacent properties. There were 8 letters mailed, 0 returned.
Questions for Eric? We get all the utility easements worked out during tech review?
I believe we did.
Is there anyone here from the applicant that wishes to speak?
Hi, my name is Stephanie Floyd. I represent 5220 Middlebury Street, Elkhart LLC. Do you have any questions for me today?
Is the applicant planning to relocate their existing store, or is this a new store?
No, this is a brand new store.
Great. Anybody else have any questions? I'm not seeing any. Thank you.
We did work out the utility easements though.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. I will go ahead and open the public hearing up for this item. If there's anyone here in the audience or online that wishes to speak on this, now would be the time. Not seeing anyone, I will go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the Plan Commission. Any other questions or comments? I get a motion and a second for the approval of this site plan.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Ms. Lawson, second by Mr. Mishler. Carla, could you please do a roll call?
Osborne,
Yes.
Beecher,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes.
Mishler,
Aye.
Irwin.
Yes. Motion carries. 25X05.
Okay, so the petitioner is Francisco Simez and Maria Torres. The address is 1920 Benham Avenue. The request is per section 5.3, special exception use 4.3G, daycare center to allow for the establishment for a new daycare at 1920 Benham Avenue. Staff analysis. The petitioners are submitting an application for a daycare at 1920 Benham Avenue. There are 6 other house daycare centers in the 2000 block of Benham, also owned and operated by the petitioner. They have been able to expand and fill the childcare openings in part because of the demonstration for the need for daycare providers in Elkhart. The house at 1920 Benham Avenue is 920 square feet and is built in 1950 according to the Elkhart County Assessor's records. The lot is 0.15 acres. At the writing of this report, staff has not visited the site. Staff will make an appointment to visit the site before the hearing. They plan to apply for a Class 2 license with the state's Family and Social Service Administration FSSA, which allows for up to 16 children. Pickup and drop-off for the facility will be handled from the alley on the east of the building. There is ample amounts of parking in the rear for employees. Based on the information provided in the petition, they plan on enrolling in the Children and Adult Care Food Program, CACFP, to provide healthy meals. They also became members of the National Association for Family Children Care, NAFCC. In terms of space, the house is adequate. The state requires a minimum of 560 square feet for a Class 2 license. Recommendations. Staff recommends approval of the request based upon the following finding of facts. The special exception is so defined, location and proposed to be operated that the public health, safety, and welfare will be protected. The special exception will not reduce the value of other properties in its immediate vicinity because there are no exterior changes to the existing building. The special exception shall conform to the regulations of the zoning district in which it is to be located because it will not generate an adverse effect on adjoining properties in the form of noise, smoke, or odors. Conditions. If the board chooses to approve the requested special exception, staff recommends that the following conditions be placed on the approval. The petitioner shall submit plans for the building renovation to the building department within 14 days of approval and obtain permits for any work to be done there within 45 days of approval. Number 2, all children shall be restricted to the building and fenced-in play area except when arriving and leaving or on supervised walks and outings. Number 3, the facility and grounds shall be kept clean at all times. Number 4, the facility shall be subject to inspections upon reasonable notice by the zoning administration during hours of operation. Number 5, there shall be no exterior display, signage, or other forms of advertisement on the premise. Number 6, a copy of the child care home license shall be submitted to the Department of Planning and Zoning upon request from the Indiana Family and Social Service Administration. Number 7, if the daycare ceases to operate for more than 1 year or the license is revoked, the special exception will become null and void. Number 8, if violation of the terms of this special exception as determined by the city zoning administrator shall remain that the special exception invalid. Number 9, there shall be a maximum of 16 children. Number 10, pickup and drop-off shall be from the alley at the rear of the property. Number 11, the special exception is for 2 years and shall be renewed as a staff item by the Board of Zoning Appeals on July 10th, 2027.
Thank you, Kyle. Any questions for Kyle?
There's a fair amount of other daycares in that area. I think the petitioner mentioned owns 6 others in the area. Is there a concern at all regarding traffic during drop-off and pickup times and things like that? Has that been addressed or brought up? Has there been any concerns or complaints from neighbors or any scuttle on that?
We've not had any complaints from any of the neighbors. We have looked at this with other prior requests. Based on the fact that the traffic for the children are on the alley, they're not fronting on Prairie. It's actually an oversized alley, which actually is a benefit for if you would need to have two-way traffic on the alley, you could accommodate those cars. And at this point, we've not received any complaints, and nor have we observed any issues.
And the
with
pickup
traffic.
and drop-off would be from the alleyway? So.
Everything is from the alley.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Eric? It looks like there's going to be a fair amount of remodeling. Are you going to do your inspection after all that's done?
Typically, we do it after. We will make an appointment to go out and confirm the amount, but either way, we'll take a look at the work. Mm-hmm.
We're online, so thank you for joining us. Is there anything you'd like to say?
Hello?
Hi, yes, we can hear you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, my name is Francisco Sesmas and
Maria Torres.
Yeah, and well, we are requesting a special exemption to use 1920 Benham Avenue to use it as a daycare center. If you have any questions, we are happy to answer them.
Applicant? Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
There is no public hearing on this. This is a recommendation to the BZA. The BZA will have a public hearing when it goes to the BZA. Could I get a motion in a second for recommendation to the BZA?
I'll make a motion to send it to the BCA with a due pass recommendation with the conditions listed in the staff report.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Osborne, second by Ms. Lawson. Carla, could you please do a roll call?
Beecher,
Yes.
Osborne, Lawson,
Yes.
Mishler, Irwin.
Yes, motion carries. 25X06.
The petitioner's First Presbyterian Church of Elkhart. The site location is 200 East Beardsley Avenue. The request is per section 5.3 special exception uses to allow for a cafe within the church at 200 East Beardsley Avenue. Again, the request is per section 5.3 special exception uses to allow for a cafe within the church at 200 East Beardsley Avenue. The request is considered an expansion of the special exception use as a place of worship, and therefore a new petition request is required to be approved. The petitioners are submitting a special exception request to expand their cafe ministry to the public to be open Tuesday through Friday from 11 to 2. The church has undertaken an extensive renovation of the lower level of the building to expand the contemporary worship space around the coffee house theme. With the opening of the cafe this spring, representatives from Ruthmere reached out to the church to see if there was an interest in the cafe expanding the hours to offer the visitors to the museum a place close to have lunch. The idea was that visitors could have a place to eat and spend more time in the neighborhood between the Ruthmere Museum and the Havilah Beardsley House. The church sees this as an opportunity to provide a new service to the community. The entrance to the cafe is on the east side of the church building facing Grove Street, with the museum directly across the street. The Ruthmere currently has a long-standing arrangement for their patrons to utilize the church's parking lot. Staff has reviewed the request, feels the expanded cafe use and hours will not cause harm to the surrounding neighborhood. The church will be required to meet all Elkhart County Health Department rules and requirements. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the request based on the following findings of fact. Number one, the special exception is so defined and located and proposed to be operated so that the public health, safety, and morals or health, safety, and welfare will be protected. Number two, the special exception will not reduce the values of other properties in its immediate vicinity because there will be no exterior changes to the existing building. Number three, the special exception shall conform to the regulations of the zoning district in which it is to be located because it will not generate adverse effects on adjacent properties in the form of noise, smoke, or odor. Conditions, there is one, the petitioner shall provide proof of Elkhart County Health Department approval.
Questions for Eric? Eric, did this get City of Elkhart sewer utility approval when it was put in?
I don't know. I can't say.
Okay. Is there anyone here from the applicant that wishes to speak? Please come up.
I'm Reverend Dr. Sally Wicks. I'm the pastor at First Presbyterian Church, and I'm here with my clerk of session, Marcia Stackhouse, elder in our church. The session of the church is quite excited about this idea. The cafe was a renovation of our fellowship hall, and so it was an existing basement level fellowship hall that we completely renovated, raising the ceilings and putting in new wood flooring and stone and wood trim around the walls. It was designed for worship. People come in to worship in this place and they sit at cafe tables. We have a snack bar from our kitchen and they have coffee and snacks. The idea to turn it into something more came from Bill Furstenberger from the Ruthmere, who attended our grand opening and came over. The grand opening was in December, came over in January and said, "Are you going to open up for food?" And I said, "No, that's not in the plans." And he said, "Could it be?" And so we started thinking about this idea as a service to be a good neighbor to the Ruthmere and to be a service to the community. So it's a long-standing building. We've been there since 1960. Have I answered your question?
Appreciate that, and I appreciate everything you do for the community. However, being a food service establishment puts you into a different classification of sewer use, and unfortunately comes with additional items that are required to make sure that you're not discharging fats, oils, or grease into the sanitary sewer system.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So I would just add as a condition to this recommendation that you contact the city's sewer utility. Steve Brown is his name, and you can coordinate with him on what you're doing and if additional measures are going to be needed.
Right. Marcia, did you work on that already? I was going to say Marcia has already checked into that. Do you want to add anything?
Hi, I'm Marcia Stackhouse. I've been in contact with the Water Department, asking what their requirements were. We're fully aware that we will need a fog permit. They have agreed to come in pre-opening and even us upgrading all of our equipment to advise us what we will need going forward, not only with the Water Department, but we've also been in contact with the Health Department. for the
Okay,
same
great.
purpose.
Sounds like you're on top of it, and that's great to hear. Thank you.
Any other questions for me?
Not seeing any, no. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any other questions from Plan Commission? Not seeing any. Could I get a motion in a second with regard to the recommendation to the BZA for this?
I'll make a due pass recommendation to the BZA with the added condition that they speak with city utilities and get the fog permit as required by local ordinance.
Motion by Mr. Mishler, second by Mr. Beecher. Carla, could you please do a roll call?
Osborne. Beecher.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes.
Mishler.
Aye.
Irwin.
Yes. Motion carries. Staff items 25 SI06.
The petitioners in the City of Elkhart Planning and Zoning Department. The Planning and Zoning Department is requesting approval of the addresses that have been reserved for structures in the City of Elkhart. You see a number of them for residential and a page and a half of commercial. I'll save you all and not read those all into the record.
Thank you, Eric.
You're welcome.
A motion and a second for approval.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Osborne, second by Mr. Mishler. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries. Presentation of the UDO.
Someday.
Visit the technology. Good afternoon. I am here to present the final summary of the UDO, the zoning ordinance update to a UDO. With me this afternoon, I have Cynthia Bowen and Allison Richardson from REA, as well as representatives today from Enfocus, who helped us with our outreach in the community. Today we're going to cover the benefits of what a UDO is, our development process, engagement results, key changes, as well as how to use the UDO. And technology, it's not. The comprehensive plan comprehensive plan serves as policy foundation for the UDO. It has policies regarding how the city should develop and what and where infrastructure improvements are needed to support the development, suggests changes to the UDO, and provides guidance on the creation of a capital improvement plan based on infrastructure improvements. Likewise, you will find the UDO's purpose and intent statements are consistent with the comprehensive plan and are supported by the goals and policies within the comprehensive plan. The way that works is the comprehensive plan is an overarching document for the entire city. It documents the vision for the city, its values and development aspirations, and what and where development should be located. After the broad policy is set and land use and transportation maps are created, the comprehensive plan should last about 20 years, and with periodic updates. But in between, sub-area plans are created to give certain areas in the community more specific development and character direction. These are implemented through sub-area or special area plans like a downtown, neighborhood, or streetscape plan, to name a few. To implement policies in all of these documents, the Unified Development Ordinance is updated from time to time, modifying regulations, standards, requirements, and intent statements so the UDO stays in line with the city's value and delivers a desirable and predictable built outcome. When the city started out this process, it was certainly to merge their zoning and subdivision codes. At that time, it was not intended to make such a drastic change. However, several sub-area plans were created that influenced and changed the directory of the UDO. However, the goals of the project did not change. These have always been the goals, and they're highlighted on the board for you, and to ensure that Elkhart remains economically competitive while there was efficient and effective land use regulations. And to quickly summarize, the goals of the update were to create a more user-friendly and understandable ordinance, simplify the regulations, reorganize the ordinance to increase its ease of located information, adding more graphics, increased flexibility for staff and applicants to determine the best outcome for a site, update the districts and standards to allow new development types, and to ensure consistency with state and federal law, and to reflect the vision and policies of the comprehensive plan and other sub-area plans. One of the topics that emerged during the creation of the sub-area plans was more housing choices and opportunities in the city of Elkhart. We as planners call it the missing middle. Under most zoning codes from the 60s through the mid-2000s, the only choices were single-family homes and apartments. Many other types were forgotten about in most cities. With the rising prices and costs for housing, and other housing types are more economical and can fit within the character of most neighborhoods. These can include duplexes, fourplexes, cottage courts, townhomes, smaller apartment complexes, and live-work units. So we've mentioned the term UDO a lot already, but what is a UDO? A UDO combines a series of different codes into one code so there's more consistency between regulations, such as definitions and other terms. Administration and enforcement are consistent between the codes and are more flexibility is allowed because the codes are combined into one ordinance. Usually these codes include zoning, subdivision, preservation, floodplain regulations, etc. What are the benefits of a UDO? Some of the greatest benefits are simplifying the development process so there is one place for residents and developers to go to find what they need to do to build something in Elkhart. All the regulations are in one place. The regulations are unified and consistent so the petitioner knows what to expect in the process and what the city expects in terms of development. This is critical for a developer to make their development work and bring their project to market faster. In this ordinance, there will be enhanced visual clarity. There will be a lot of tables and graphics used to illustrate the regulations and the character the city desires. As they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. In this case, it is true. This UDO will allow more orderly growth through more flexibility of provisions and the creation of alternative methods to accomplish the goals and intent of the ordinance. The UDO is not black and white. There are gray areas in there to help get the development to market faster, reduce the cost of development without sacrificing the character of areas within the community. The UDO, we are creating 4 different zoning types. The base of the entire code is Euclidean, which means it is prescriptive and focuses on breaking the city down into districts and regulating the uses that are allowed in those districts, managing the impacts of those uses and containing dimensional standards that development needs to abide by in each district. Performance zoning regulates the impact of zoning such as nuisance impacts. These are typically odor, noise, dust, vibration, glare, etc., and pertain generally to commercial and industrial districts. The regulations for these are based on performance criteria such as impervious surface, trip generation, noise vibration at the edge of the property, etc. Form-based codes are graphic-based standards that focus more on form and character of the development than the uses. This type of regulation is more prescriptive. It outlines what is intended of development when it comes to design. The zoning typically has its own zoning districts, such as traditional neighborhood development or downtown district. While it can be used for an entire city, it is most effective for smaller areas and often used with other types of zoning in developing a hybrid code. Incentive-based zoning focuses on providing incentives in exchange for something the city wants to promote, but the market might not be there to support it. For example, providing more public space or affordable housing, the city can offer increased density through allowing greater heights, smaller lots, more floor area, all of which can be seen as incentives for the developer to provide these desirable qualities the city wants. Ordinance development process.
Thanks, Eric. Good afternoon. So I'll talk a little bit about our process.
Could you please
and
state
where
your
we-
name for the record?
Oh, yes. Cynthia Bowen, Rundell, Ernstberger and Associates. So I've been one of the planners working on this. So the creation of this has taken a couple of years to create this full ordinance. We started off with the project foundation, and that really starts with defining the scope, the goals, and assessing your existing zoning code, what's in it, what do we want to keep, what are we going to carry over, what regulations need to change. We also wanted to continue to build on the public engagement efforts from some of the things and changes we had made in previous code efforts. So working within Focus, we targeted some of the public outreach to very specific topics that we wanted to receive feedback from the public and various stakeholders. So we have done that throughout this entire process. Of course, drafting the UDO takes quite a bit of time to do that. And so our process is where we start to draft specific chapters. They go in an order that seems a little crazy if you're in part of the drafting process. We do uses and districts first and then spread out from there. But what we do is we give sections to the staff to review, give us comment and feedback, and then we refine those. And it's a continual process for each chapter until we kind of get a complete book. Then when we get the complete document, then the staff goes back through once again and looks at it in totality. And really, the writing of the document really never quits or never ends until the ordinance gets drafted. because there's always changes, there's always things that come up that we determine may not work. So during this time, we've also been updating the website and materials, again, because we want to test certain concepts. We want to make sure the public understands where we are and where we're going. And then later this year, we'll go through formal adoption with you all as the Plan Commission and then with the council. And then after that, we will do implementation and training. So we will, currently we're working through some of development petitions to see how the ordinance reacts to those, making sure we don't run into any complications. But then after we adopt the ordinance, we sit down with the staff, we work through a variety of development petitions, and then we provide training for the boards like you all, the BZA, the council, so they understand how to use the code in what they are doing, like what you're doing now. So what are some other things that we looked at in this process? So during the first part of the process, we needed to understand what was existing on the ground regarding your current development. And so one of our goals in any code update is to make sure that we don't create more nonconformities in the process. And so in order to do that, we use your GIS system and what you have put together to do the analysis. A lot of that is done on the lot width and the area of the lot. And so in this case, what we're showing you here is a diagram of the lot width. And we use something called a whiskers and box plot analysis. So you've now learned something new for today, and you guys can take the rest of the day off. Just kidding. So what this does is it tells us where the parcels fall in the minimum amount, which was 3 feet, only 3 foot in width lot, in a maximum amount. So there was a lot that had almost 4,000 lot width. The median amount, which was 100 feet, and then the first quartile and third quartile. So your current nonconformities right now in an R1 district, you have your minimum lot width is 75 feet. You have 557 nonconformities right now with that 75 feet. And so what we started to look at with this analysis is, what if we go in and change that? How far can we get that down so it makes sense and we reduce nonconformities without affecting the character of the community? And what we were able to, by looking at this analysis, is that we were able to reduce the lot width to 60% or 60 feet and reduce the number of nonconformities to 270. So it was only about 10% of the lots within the city or that were R1 that only would become nonconforming. So with that, we re-envisioned the UDO districts based on some of the outcomes that we were seeing from the sub-area plans that were being completed for the downtown area and the Benham neighborhood. So we ended up collapsing some of the districts. We went from 15 districts overall down to 9 districts. We also reorganized and renamed the districts. Currently they're R1, R2, R3, R4, R5, C1, C2. And that doesn't tell the public anything about what the district is. So we changed the names to suburban residential, compact residential, urban residential. So urban residential meaning small lots in the core, suburban residential meaning on the outskirts, much larger lots than what you would have. And again, we did the same thing with non-residential districts, talking about a professional services district, neighborhood businesses. So those are going to be things like cafes, bookstores, dry cleaning, those types of things. Down to the central business district, it's core, institutional uses, research and development, manufacturing. So we were able to change some of the intents of those districts. We then also looked at your overlay districts, and we ended up not making any changes to those because we needed to keep those the way they were. There were 2 districts we found, though, that were not used at all, and that was the Office Park District and the Business Park District. So they are nowhere on the map at all. So what we did was we kind of grandfathered them in, created them as legacy districts, and so they will, in essence, remain there in perpetuity. But anything that was, just in case anything was ever rezoned Office Park or Business Park, and it was erroneously not included on the map, we can still have a way or a path forward with those through the Research and Development District. So there are really 4 general areas which encompass the major changes within the zoning code, and that includes the uses, the building types and standards, the overlay districts, and development standards. So when it came to the uses, what we tried to do was simplify the uses, pull the uses out of each district and put them in its own use chapter. And so we then simplified those, and we then created more use standards. Now, the reason why we wanted to do this is that looking and creating more use standards, we were trying to manage the impact of those uses and trying to limit the number of uses that would have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals for review. So by including those things in the zoning ordinance, it allowed more things to be by right. So if a petitioner can meet the standards that we have here, they would then be by right and would not have to go through any zoning process. Secondly, we wanted to allow for the meaningful integration of uses, so that allowed us to mix uses horizontally over a property or vertically in a building. And so that allowed us to do that in this manner. And this would promote more mixed uses, make things more flexible for development. And we also, lastly, wanted to focus on the character of the development. What does it look like? What is the feel? How does that development act and kind of integrate with existing development? And so those were some of the other things that we focused on when we were looking at some of the different specific regulations for each use. So the building types and standards, this is new to the ordinance. So the other thing that we tried to do was pull out the building types out of the uses. So a lot of times in Euclidean zoning, the building types get kind of mixed in with the uses, and so we pulled those out. So for an example, people might say single-family dwelling unit, and that is, they say that's the use. Well, that's actually a building type. It's not necessarily a use. The use is residential. And so we took all the building types out and identified all of the different types of buildings. So detached dwelling narrow, detached dwelling standard, detached accessory dwelling unit, general building type, those types of things. So again, this allows for greater flexibility because not all building types should be in every single zoning district. And so then what we did was we created a matrix to say which building type belonged in which zoning district or would be permitted. And then we developed a series of standards for those building types and how they should be built. And so then we were managing the form, the character of what that building looked like. In the overlay districts, there's 2 things with the overlay districts. In one case, in some of the overlay districts, added in more specific regulation that was more restrictive. So in floodplain districts, in the airport district, those regulations are going to be more restrictive because you need to limit development around the airport. You need to be cognizant of their runways and be protective of those. So the standards are going to be more restrictive. In other areas, such as your downtown or the Benham neighborhood, we're trying to focus on the character of what that development looks like. So the base zoning district, we want to loosen those regulations and not make use so important to that district. And so we then used an overlay district to kind of overwrite, because there's multiple zoning districts within a certain neighborhood. We used the overlay district to cover all of those different zoning districts, and then are able to relax the regulations, make those regulations much more flexible for a specific area. And so that's what we did with the overlay districts. Finally, on the development standards include things like parking, landscape, signage, fences. And so what we did here was to make sure we clarified some of the standards that were in the previous ordinance. We wanted to make sure that we had compliance with state and federal laws, because those have changed since your last ordinance was updated. We wanted to reduce or change some of the standards, like in the parking. Some of the parking had high standards. We wanted to reduce some of those and then add in some incentive zoning or incentives for parking. And then we wanted to add in graphics. Your previous zoning code did not have a lot of graphics to it, so this code, we added in a lot more graphics for building types, for how to lay out a lot, how to show and measure parking, to show buffer areas, those types of things, because a picture really is worth 1,000 words in this case. And so those are some of the things that we had changed in the zoning code. So I will go ahead and hand it back over to Eric.
Engagement results. This is where Focus helped us do our outreach to the public. Of our 13 public engagement events, 36 hours of engagement, we had 240 flyers and educational materials distributed. Project website had 500 website views and 150 website visitors. And on the screen, you'll see a diagram that we did our best to work in every quadrant of the city to get as much feedback from the community as possible. On the visitors to the website, and there is a hiccup with these two slides, so you're seeing demographics with the website. So I apologize. I'm going to do them in reverse order. The website had 64% of the visitors access directly the website, either from in-person public engagement or scanning the QR code, and 23% of the visitors came from Facebook or the City of Elkhart posts on the community website, and the remaining 13% were Google or WNDU. And then the demographics of who we engaged, 32% were from the Northeast, 30% were from the Southeast, and 21% from the Northwest, and 17% from the Southwest. Not an even number of people, but a good cross-section of the community representing all four quadrants of the city. The next was a visual preference survey on housing options. Part of our outreach was not only feedback, but education at the same time. We talked earlier about the missing middle and looking at other alternative housing options other than single-family or large apartment complexes. Of the housing options, townhouse and duplex side-by-side were our top vote getters for people who are interested or would be open to seeing those types of developments on infill lots in their neighborhood. Next, with courtyard buildings and cottage courts, And then finally, duplexes and fourplexes, rounding out the top 5 vote getters. And personally, I think this is good for our community because we are seeing a broadening of spectrum of being open to other housing types in our neighborhoods. And that's what we want to see and we want to continue to develop. Next was the visual preference survey on public amenities, on-street parking, gateway features, outdoor dining, street trees, rain gardens. We had 99 people who voted in our survey. And out of the 99, 21 preferred outdoor dining, the next 18 rain gardens separating by pedestrian paths, and 15 extra wide sidewalk and pathway. And you can see the rest were on with regard to their votes. And again, from a planner's perspective, and as for the planner for the city of Elkhart, it's encouraging that people are looking to the pedestrian amenities and those public infrastructures that support the pedestrian, biking, joggers, and not just planning for the car. So I think that is a good thing for our community. Key changes to the UDO. In creating the UDO, there are 3 areas of change: what stayed the same, new content added, and what was changed or modified from the existing ordinance, and I'll go through each of those in the following slides. First, what has stayed the same and what we carried over. Most of the major elements of the zoning and subdivision ordinances have been carried over, including the development standards, uses, general regulations, overlay, and special districts. The uses have been taken out of the individual districts and organized in an easy-to-read chart as depicted on the slide. General regulations were carried over, and to better explain concepts, some additional graphics were created. No changes were made in the overlay and special districts, as we noted on the slide. For new content, the overall layout of the document has changed from what the zoning was before. This is because we've added in the subdivision and preservation ordinances, created one space or one place for definitions and one place for administration. We consolidated, again, the number of zoning districts from 15 to 9, and we added a hearing officer process that would allow the Plan Commission to delegate certain processes and allow the hearing officer to make decisions on variance or conditional uses more often than the Board of Zoning Appeals. We added new examples of design concepts and uses such as cluster development, cottage court development, and allowed new uses that are more modern and technologically driven. The building typologies that we previously discussed are actually, these are the charts from the actual ordinance for you to see. And then adding new content, adding a section of rules, adding a section on rules of measurement so that everyone using the document knows how planning staff will calculate average setback, build-to zones, etc. Before, it was all text and there were no formulas. So this way we have all of our formulas in the document itself, and there's no mystery on how we are calculating either the setback for your particular project. Parking. The parking standards have been updated and modernized by exempting some areas from parking minimums, creating flexible parking credits, and adding new electric vehicle parking standards. Landscaping and buffering. We changed the buffering section, landscape and buffering section, by consolidating everything into one chapter and then changing some of the standards. Some of the highlights are reducing the perimeter tree planting spacing from 40 foot on center to 30 foot on center, requiring some residential tree planting, corner side yard fence location, and requiring irrigation systems for commercial development on properties or projects that are greater than 1 area in acre in area. What's been changed or modified? Updated development standards to allow for more flexibility, consolidate uses and simplified them, and added in more specific development standards to regulate the impacts of that standard, added graphics to the document to illustrate concepts, expanded the definitions to ensure that each use has a definition, reduced parking requirements, and adding graphics for buffer yards to provide clarity to the regulation. What's changed? Continuing on with the condensed administration procedures for staff and board roles, we have actually added a chapter where every board and their roles and obligations are outlined. So again, there is no mystery. We know exactly what the Plan Commission's rules and obligations are, role and obligation. Board of Zoning Appeals, the hearing officer, the Preservation Commission, the Common Council, all of those are laid out for the public to have in the ordinance. Incorporated and added a right of entry for inspection, which was missing from our ordinance. That is in the building and code, but for our purposes, having a right of entry was important for the zoning code update. Then finally, as again mentioned, we reduced the number of districts from 15 to 9 and changed the district names. And again, like Cynthia mentioned earlier, the district names are changed to reflect what actually is occurring by use rather than by number and by letter and number in nomenclature. And, sorry, I had one more. Subdivision, updating the subdivision regulations to reflect modern subdivision development practices, ADA requirements, street developments and design as required by Public Works. And then updating the sign standards to ensure they are in conformity with state and federal rulings, as well as expanding the list of signs not requiring a permit and adding allowable temporary signs, which the feather flags have become something that the general public is wanting. So we have added them as a temporary sign with the same limits to the time period as other temporary signs, and as well as standardizing the time allowances for temporary signs.
Hello, I'm Allison Richardson. I'm also a consultant with REA who has worked with this city on developing the UDO, and I will be going over how you will use the UDO document. So we began with the intent to create a digital version with hyperlinks for ease of use navigating the document so that anybody can pull up an online version of the document, and for the most part, if you click on a title of a chapter, you will automatically be redirected to that. We've also included a more detailed table of contents and a how to use section at the beginning of the document that has an explanation of the purpose of each chapter and what you can expect to find in that chapter. We included an overview of all the proposed zoning districts in the new UDO that gives a description, and they are ordered from the least intense development to the most intense development with a description of the district and its intent, some typical characteristics of development, and the different building types that are permitted. We included a page that describes some zoning concepts and elements of the UDO and where to find them in the document. These are also hyperlinked, so this explains some of the zoning terms and where to find them. We also created a chart slash checklist in the how-to section of the UDO that explains how an applicant would move through project development review and where to look for things in the UDO and steps to complete the process. We outlined 4 steps here. Step 1 would be to determine your property's zoning classification and what uses are permitted. Step 2 would be to review and comply with development standards, things like the building types, landscaping, signs, all of those different standards. And from there, you would see if you need to seek any approvals based on what your project needs are and what exists there, things like rezoning or a subdivision plat. And step 4 would be to obtain permits with the building department. So the entire draft is available at this link, or you can go to our website, cityofelkhartudo.com, and that's all one word together, so that you can review the draft we have proposed.
And we'll wrap this up today with a note that the document is still in its draft form. We will email you the link, so you will have that for your reading pleasure. And I want to provide the next steps. We, as a staff, are continuing to work with REA on the updates and some final tweaks. Next, we will have the next step in our process will be a joint meeting with the Common Council that is scheduled for July 30th. We'll send you a reminder, but it will be in this room on July 30th in the afternoon with the Common Council. We'll walk through a slightly more in-depth proposal, a presentation with the Common Council so they, again, have a better understanding because they've not been with us on all these steps. We'll have a couple more public engagements and working in anticipation of our adoption. We'll be drafting our user guide and then working on training with boards and commissions. With that, I would like to thank you for your attention this afternoon. I would like to thank REA, Allison and Cynthia, as well as NFocus, and I know we've got a couple fellows in the back, Nick and Benji, who have worked on our engagement with us as well. So I'm very appreciative of all of their work. I have a very small staff, and without them, I would not have been able to undertake this process.
Thank you, Eric. Any questions for Eric or the team?
Do we know what time on the 30th?
No, we don't. My guess is we're going to aim for like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's what I'm hoping for. I've been in touch with Mr. Dawson as well as the council secretary, and we're working our way through that right now. In the interim, I would encourage you to go to the easier URL is the Elkhart, Indiana UDO, and to kind of take a look at it and kind of thumb through it to get to take a look at the work that's gone into this. It's been a tremendous undertaking, and I can't wait for it to be adopted.
Thank you, Eric and Cynthia and Allison. Good job, everyone. Appreciate all the info and the hard work. I know what a massive undertaking something like this is. So good job.
Very good job. Thank you.
I will go ahead and adjourn this meeting of the Plan Commission. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.